What's up guys, Matt, Legacy 4x4. We are working on a tuggy buggy again. We're gonna build a simple front truss from sheet metal you can buy at Home Depot or Lowe's. So let's get into it. So exorbitant steel prices got you down and you don't want to buy a full sheet of steel for a simple project. You don't have enough scrap laying around, whatever. So I'm going to build this front truss out of steel I just bought at Lowe's for less than $100. What we're working with is 3/16 by 3" plate steel bought at Lowe's. This stuff may not be the best quality steel on the market, but for less than $100 without having any scrap, this is going to be a perfect use of the Lowe's steel market right now. Even though steel prices have been skyrocketing, Lowe's and Home Depot are big enough where the prices don't fluctuate too much. You know, I say that with air quotes around it because they still fluctuate, but they don't fluctuate too much. So that's why I went with Home Depot or Lowe's. And yeah, we're gonna make it work. All right, so let's talk through the design on my front axle on my buggy. This axle is a Dana 50 out of an old style Ford with 8x6.5 hubs on it. It's pretty uncommon in the world of off-roading, but it's going to be a good axle for me. And its narrow track width compared to other full-size axles really makes the stance on my buggy stand out. As you can see, my buggy is not too terribly wide as it would be on true traditional modern 1-tons. So the Dana 50 should be quite good enough for its application under my lightweight tube buggy. My plans to build this truss are relatively simple. There's not gonna be any dimple dies, there's not gonna be anything fancy. It's just gonna be a bare bones 3/16 truss. My plan for this truss is relatively simple. I'm gonna run a flat piece of 3/16 going from my differential housing to my third link mount, that upper mount on the passenger side of the vehicle. And then I'm gonna run a 45-degree 3/16 piece, gusseting that upper link down to the very far passenger side of the axle. As well, to accommodate for strength, I'm going to run perpendicular 3/16 spines coming vertically off the axle at 90 degrees, running into my flat 3/16 piece. And then for the faces of the truss, I'm going to run some parallel 1/8" plate on each side of the truss, and that's just going to add strength as well as a little bit of style to the truss. My driver axle tube is extremely short on this Dana 50, so I'm still debating on whether I'm going to truss this side. I will likely just add a truss going from the diff straight to that axle tube as a small means of matching the passenger side. That way it doesn't look too funky just having a truss on one side. Since both my pieces of plate from Lowe's are 3 inches tall, I'm going to use that as a means of not having to make extra cuts, as well as simplifying design overall. So instead of just sitting here, I'm going to go ahead and weld on that flat upper piece and that 45-degree piece. And I'm also going to add those spines beneath it using 3/16 plate. Going to make all this with the plasma cutter. It should be nice and quick. So let's just get right into it. All right, it's nighttime. We are working under a nice old-fashioned candlelight, and here we are. We got everything tacked in place. We're going with a straight flush on top of the axle. That way we have maximum strength of the spine of this truss. And by maximum strength, I just want this to be parallel with the ground, not skewed following the axle or anything. So this is my flat piece. Next step that we gotta do is build some spines to support that flat piece, perpendicular to the flat piece itself, and you know, cardboard cutouts. That's how we're gonna do it. This is a nice little rough estimate. As you can see, we can slide it in there. Got a little bit of wiggle room, so we're gonna make it a little bit taller, but that's what we're doing for the spines. So as you can see, I got one cut out already. That one's gonna be right next to the axle tube, and I'll probably do 1, 2, 3, 4 total on this side, and then maybe one over here. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get all these spines cut out on this side, throw it in, and I'll check back in. All right, and we're back. We have all of these spines and all of the flat portions in place. that's how they look. I'm right now debating on whether I want to do this driver's side. It's so stubby, it would probably provide zero additional structure anyways, so I probably won't. I'll just see how symmetrical it looks just having the passenger side done. So that's what the spines look like. They're just tacked in place. The next step's going to be fully welding. I'm going to go ahead and fully weld everything while it's on the axle. Don't see a point in taking it off and welding off it. It's just going to cause warping anyways, so just going to fully weld everything while it's on the axle. This angular gusset for the third link is also welded in already. I have no idea how those welds look since I basically weld it in the pitch black, but I'll clean them up in the morning anyways. I went ahead and hit that back corner with a hammer as well to match the angle of the axle tube. That's how everything looks. It's going to get cleaned up in the morning and probably put a finish pass over it with a nice visible weld. So yeah, that's how that looks on that side. It's also going to weld into the pan hard mount right there in that corner as well. So we're adding a bunch of additional structure. Again, all of these pieces are also going to have plate steel going in the middle of all the skeleton bracing, so everything should be nice and rigid when we're done with it. It's already going to be a ton more rigid, but that 1/8 inch plate steel for the face of them is just going to add even more structure. So happy with that. But clearly it's dark outside, so I'm gonna go ahead and pack up for the night, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. And it's another beautiful fall day, and we're back working on this front truss. So I may have skipped a few steps. Like always, I went ahead and tacked in my face plate. So all those spines are fully welded in. You can see on the bottom, I guess. And yep, welded both sides, top and bottom of the axle, so the spines are nice and solid. Got everything welded in fully on the top plate as well. So the next step is going to be these face plates, and I was going to cut out each face plate individually like you saw in my real crappy animation. I was going to cut those out individually and make them look kind of unique, but it's just so much easier to make a flat face plate right here that that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to allow room underneath for like water and anything else to build up to drop off the axle so it doesn't build up in there. And then I'm going to run a ridge spine on the top, and this spine section will be fully welded on the inside on both sides. So that's how I'm going to do it. It's also going to allow me to kind of re-level everything, make sure everything looks nice and perfect. And yeah, I already went ahead and cut out all my sections of 3/16 steel for the spines and the back side, as well as the front right here and everything. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and tack all of those in place so you can kind of see the final look of what I'm going for, and then it's just a bunch of welding and painting. So yeah, I'm gonna do that real quick, and I'll show you guys the final shape and final design of this front truss. And we're back. Here's the final look of it. May not be the prettiest, but it's definitely going to be functional, and I'm happy with it. I'm just going to have to go back through and clean everything up now. And yeah, a quick note is that I did paint the inside before I did anything. That way there's at least a coat of paint on the inside of it. You never know. As you can see, that spine runs right there, going to get fully welded on the inside. As well, there's a spine on the very far passenger side as well. So that's how it looks tacked in place. I'm gonna go ahead and get to a final pass on this bad boy, and we'll call it good to go. Should be it should be pretty structural and pretty functional for less than, I think, $50 worth of steel, since I didn't even touch my 1/8 inch plate. I made the whole thing out of 3/16 plate, and I only used I don't know, 4 feet of it. So pretty happy with that. I'm gonna go ahead and burn it all in. I think I got some sparks in my eye, but we're finished. Final welds are in. Let me show you guys. This is how everything looks. Everything is final welded, coat of paint on the inside. Some of the welds aren't as pretty as I wanted them to be. Like anything else, it's just welding new metal to old metal gets a little hard. So, but at the end of the day, this is all gonna get a coat of paint on anyways, a nice thick coat of black paint. So most of the welds will probably end up being hidden, so not too worried about it. Here's how that fancy little tail section looks. Just a lot of really hard angles to play with. But for the most part, all the steel is lined up and perfectly flush with other pieces of steel, so I'm happy with it. Last thing I'm gonna do right now is put a nice thick coat of black paint on it. So I will go do that, and we'll talk afterwards. All right, so did a little touch-up spot welding right there, and don't have any black paint, so we're gonna do it just primer only. So finished product reveal. That's how it looks. That's the Rust-Oleum fill primer, so that cracking right there is just the heat cracking it. Not too worried about that. Top of those spines. a little further back. And yeah, I'm happy with that. Once that's all painted black, it should make that front axle look a lot beefier than it is. So there it is, guys. That's the simple, less than $50 front truss. I'm happy with it. It's all 3/16 plate, and yep, not much more to say about it. As a side note, I did put my cheetah roof on the buggy. This roof is just a mesh tarp that I flipped over twice on itself, so it's twice as thick as it usually comes. And it is just zip tied to the roll bars on the top. I think I have about 50 zip ties holding it down. And that should be plenty enough for keeping this little mesh tarp on. And it also should keep the sun out of my face. So happy with that. That's the cheetah roof. More progress on the tuggy buggy. Next video is going to be one of two things. It's going to be installing some hydraulic steering components, you know, maybe around there somewhere, or it's going to be something different, and it's going to be new tires on the tuggy buggy. I'm going to reuse the tires on the 39, put these rollers on the 39 for now, and I got in the mail a set of Coyote bead locks. They're pneumatic bead locks. They're really cool. They used to be popular, then they kind of fell off the map a little bit, but now they're getting back into the popularity. So I'm gonna put a set of those Coyote bead locks on the tuggy buggy. I'm really going for lightweight on this tuggy buggy. I'm trying to do as light as possible. So if I can run aluminum wheels, 37s, and pneumatic bead locks, they're double bead locks, but they're pneumatic double bead locks. I'm looking at a very minimal unsprung weight on the tires, so that's what I'm gonna go for. That's why I'm doing it that way, just going for lightweight. And I've never ran pneumatic bead locks, so I'm excited to try them out. So yeah, one of those two videos will be up next for the tuggy buggy, and I will catch you guys then.